In 2025, homelessness is rising fastest in the very places once seen as the most promising. New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle. The numbers aren't just growing, they're accelerating. In San Diego, unsheltered homelessness rose by 22% in 1 year. In New York, over 93,000 people are now in the shelter system, the highest on record. Even cities with strong economies and social services are seeing more tents, longer shelter wait lists, and families sleeping in vehicles. This isn't isolated. And it's not just about housing. It's a warning from the places we least expected. Let's look at the data, not just to see how far it's spread, but to understand why it's worse than most of us think. As usual, this is not a pessimistic warning, but a perspective reflecting various sources to help the community understand better and prepare proactively. Are you ready to explore the first group? Let's start right now. The rising numbers surrounding homelessness in America's largest cities reflect far more than just statistics. They tell a story of individuals, families, and communities navigating a growing challenge that touches every part of urban life. Take New York City, where more than 88,000 people currently live without a stable home, enough to fill an entire sports stadium. Each person carries their own history, setbacks, and hopes for a new start. In Los Angeles, over 71,000 individuals are living without secure shelter, a number that has steadily grown in recent years, even in a city known for its opportunity and visibility. In San Francisco, where the tech economy thrives, more than 7,000 residents face the daily uncertainty of housing insecurity. The contrast is striking, leading innovation and daily hardship existing side by side. In Sacramento, a city often considered more affordable, over 9,200 people experience homelessness, showing that this challenge reaches far beyond just high-cost areas. In cities like Phoenix, where nearly 9,600 individuals face unstable housing, local agencies are working to address interconnected challenges such as limited support systems and economic displacement. Oakland, with almost 9,800 individuals, reflects how rising living costs can dramatically reshape long-time communities. Even in Silicon Valley's San Jose, home to global innovation, more than 9,900 people remain without reliable shelter. Among them are the workers who keep the city moving, many of whom are priced out of the very communities they serve. Denver's 10,000-plus unhoused population faces unique pressures from statewide housing shortages and seasonal extremes. They serve. In San Diego, over 10,200 people are in need of safe housing, underscoring the growing gap between cost of living and income. Seattle, with 14,400-plus residents experiencing homelessness, highlights how even cities with strong economies can face challenges when housing supply doesn't keep up with demand. Community-driven solutions continue to emerge, with an emphasis on long-term support. Finally, in Las Vegas, the number of individuals without permanent housing rose by nearly 20% in 1 year, reaching close to 8,000 people. Known for reinvention and resilience, the city is now tasked with finding new ways to support its most vulnerable residents. These numbers, while sobering, also point us toward the need and opportunity for greater investment, innovation, and care. Behind every figure is a story waiting for a turning point. And in that shared understanding, perhaps we find the beginning of a more sustainable, compassionate path forward. San Francisco's housing crisis tells a story far deeper than rising rent. It reveals the growing gap between opportunity and accessibility. As one of the world's most recognized hubs for technology and innovation, San Francisco attracts talent, investment, and ambition from across the globe. But behind the headlines of billion-dollar startups and glassy skyscrapers lies a difficult truth. For many residents, even a modest home is out of reach. The city's cost of living has climbed so sharply that the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment now easily surpasses $3,000 per month. That figure isn't just high, it's simply unattainable for many people working in essential roles, from baristas to healthcare aides. Even long-time residents on fixed incomes are finding themselves squeezed out of the very neighborhoods they helped build. This economic pressure doesn't affect everyone equally. Those living paycheck to paycheck face the highest risk of slipping into housing insecurity, where just one missed payment or unexpected expense can begin a downward spiral. And while San Francisco continues to thrive on the surface, the number of people living without stable housing tells a more complicated story. So, it begs the question, what kind of progress are we celebrating if the very people who keep the city running can no longer afford to live in it? And how do we move forward, not just with innovation, but with inclusion? While Sacramento might seem like a more affordable option compared to the Bay Area, it faces its own serious housing challenges, and they're growing. As California's capital, Sacramento is home to major public institutions and a steady influx of new residents. But even with that status, the city has not been able to keep up with the growing need for affordable, accessible housing. The core issue here isn't just the rising cost of rent. It's the simple fact that there aren't enough places to live. The supply of affordable housing has lagged far behind population growth, and that shortage creates intense pressure on the rental market. With fewer available options, prices go up. And when that happens, even individuals and families with stable jobs can find themselves struggling to stay housed. Phoenix faces a complex set of challenges in its effort to reduce homelessness. Challenges rooted not only in rising housing costs, but also in broader public health and community wellness concerns. Over the past few years, the city has experienced a sharp increase in the cost of living. Limited housing supply has driven up both home prices and rental rates, making it increasingly difficult for many working individuals and families to secure stable, long-term housing. Even those with steady jobs are finding it harder to keep up. But affordability isn't the only factor. Many individuals navigating housing insecurity are also facing ongoing personal hardships, including long-term stress, emotional exhaustion, or a lack of access to reliable health and wellness support. These challenges can make the path to recovery even steeper, especially without a stable home base to begin with. In Phoenix, this overlap of housing pressure and community wellness needs paints a difficult picture, but not one without hope. More and more, local leaders and support organizations are recognizing that addressing housing instability requires more than just buildings. It calls for compassion-driven, community-based systems that provide not only shelter, but also stability, trust, and a way forward. Oakland's homelessness crisis is largely fueled by the steep and rapid rise in housing prices in the Bay Area. As San Francisco becomes increasingly unaffordable, many individuals and families have sought refuge in neighboring Oakland, driving up demand and consequently, rental costs. This housing price inflation has left a significant portion of Oakland's long-term residents unable to afford rent, leading to displacement and homelessness. The stark visual contrast between wealthy neighborhoods and the growing number of tent encampments underscores the deepening economic divide within the city. The anecdote from the property manager about the shock of RVs parked around apartment buildings highlights the tangible impact of the housing crisis on the community and the challenges of finding solutions. San Jose embodies a stark paradox. A city at the heart of immense technological wealth also struggles with a significant homelessness crisis driven by astronomical housing costs. As the epicenter of Silicon Valley, San Jose has witnessed an explosion in property values, with median home prices often exceeding $1 million. This extreme housing market has pushed even essential workers, teachers, service employees, and public sector staff to live far outside the city or, in the most severe cases, into homelessness. The irony of immense wealth existing alongside such profound poverty highlights the failure of economic prosperity to trickle down and ensure housing affordability for all residents. Does the concentration of wealth in innovation hubs come at the cost of housing security for the broader community? The situation in San Jose underscores the need for policies that address housing equity even in the most affluent regions. Denver's growing homeless population is significantly exacerbated by a severe housing shortage across the state of Colorado. With a deficit of nearly 70,000 housing units, the supply simply cannot meet the demand. This lack of available housing directly contributes to rising rent prices and home values in Denver, making it increasingly difficult for low and moderate-income individuals and families to secure stable housing. The experts' consensus that addressing homelessness requires a significant focus on housing underscores the fundamental role of the housing shortage in driving the crisis in Denver. Without an increase in affordable housing options, the city's homelessness problem is likely to persist. San Diego's appeal as a tourist destination and retirement haven has inadvertently contributed to its homelessness crisis by driving up the cost of living. The influx of visitors and retirees has increased demand for housing, pushing prices to levels that many long-term residents can no longer afford. This high cost of living has led to the displacement of vulnerable individuals and families, pushing them into homelessness. The personal story of Tracy Bennett, repeatedly displaced by city sweeps, highlights the frustration with policies that focus on managing the visibility of homelessness rather than addressing the root causes of housing insecurity. Her experience underscores the need for solutions that provide genuine, long-term housing options rather than simply moving people from one street corner to another. Seattle's rapid economic growth, fueled by tech giants like Amazon and Microsoft, has been accompanied by an alarming homelessness crisis, driven by a stark disparity between wealth and housing affordability. While the tech industry has brought prosperity to many, it has also contributed to soaring housing costs, making the city increasingly unaffordable for a significant portion of its population. The story of Cara Bernstein finding a sense of community in the dangerous encampment known as the jungle illustrates the complex reasons behind homelessness and the failure of traditional shelter systems to meet the diverse needs of the unhoused. Despite efforts to provide shelter, many individuals find a semblance of safety and community in less conventional and often perilous living situations, highlighting the need for more holistic and person-centered solutions. Los Angeles faces a homelessness crisis of immense scale, driven by a confluence of factors including a high and rising cost of living and a significant lack of affordable housing. The city's growth in homelessness by 12% between 2020 and 2023 demonstrates that current efforts are insufficient to address the problem. The notorious Skid Row serves as a stark visual representation of the entrenched poverty and systemic issues contributing to homelessness in LA. The fact that even with attempts to house nearly 60,000 people, many still refuse assistance, preferring independence in precarious conditions, highlights the complexity of the issue, which goes beyond just a lack of shelter. The juxtaposition of extreme wealth in areas like Beverly Hills with the destitution on Skid Row underscores the city's glaring social inequality, further complicated by issues of crime and gang violence. New York City's status as having the largest homeless population in the US is exacerbated by an overwhelmed shelter system and a recent sharp rise in the migrant population. While the city has a legal obligation to provide shelter, the influx of nearly 100,000 migrants in the past year has strained resources beyond capacity. Shelters are overcrowded, and temporary solutions like tents and repurposed buildings have proven insufficient. The sight of migrants sleeping on the streets outside intake centers underscores the humanitarian crisis unfolding in one of the world's most prominent cities. Declining federal and state support further compounds the difficulty for New York City to keep up with the demand for housing and basic services, highlighting the interconnectedness of national and local policies in addressing this issue. While sharing similarities with the national trends of rising housing costs and inadequate social safety nets, Las Vegas also presents unique local factors contributing to its significant increase in homelessness. The city's reliance on the tourism and hospitality industries creates a workforce vulnerable to economic fluctuations and often characterized by lower wages and limited benefits, making residents susceptible to housing insecurity. The extreme desert climate adds another layer of hardship for those living unsheltered. Furthermore, the existence of the mole people living in the flood-control tunnels represents a unique and dangerous manifestation of the lack of safe and affordable housing options. The recent surge in Las Vegas's homeless population underscores the urgency of addressing these specific local vulnerabilities in addition to the broader national trends. Given Las Vegas's economic reliance on tourism, how can the city balance its image with the pressing needs of its vulnerable homeless population? Across many of America's most iconic cities, communities are stepping up with a wide range of efforts to address the growing challenge of homelessness. These responses vary from immediate relief, like emergency shelters, mobile outreach, and food assistance, to more sustainable, long-term approaches focused on rebuilding stability and dignity. One such approach gaining national momentum is the Housing First model. Unlike traditional programs that may require people to meet certain conditions before receiving help, this strategy focuses on providing safe, permanent housing first, then offering the support services individuals may need afterward. The idea is simple but powerful. When someone has a stable place to live, it becomes far more possible to address other areas of their life, whether that's finding work, improving well-being, or reconnecting with loved ones. In cities from Los Angeles to New York, trained outreach teams, often made up of caseworkers, health professionals, and volunteers, walk neighborhood streets, visit encampments, and engage with individuals who've fallen through the cracks. Their goal isn't just to offer services, but to build trust. Because often, the first step towards stability starts with a conversation. These programs don't promise overnight results, and the road forward can be long. But many success stories show that with the right resources, consistent care, and community support, transformation is possible. And when we center compassion and evidence in our approach, we not only change individual lives, we uplift entire communities. However, despite the dedication and hard work of countless individuals and organizations, these efforts are consistently met with significant challenges that hinder their effectiveness on a national scale. One of the most pervasive obstacles is insufficient funding. The resources allocated at the federal, state, and local levels often fall far short of the overwhelming need, limiting the capacity of shelters, outreach programs, and housing initiatives. The development of affordable housing, a crucial long-term solution, faces numerous hurdles, including high land costs, restrictive zoning laws, and community resistance in many urban areas. This shortage of affordable units continues to be a primary driver of homelessness across the nation. Coordination among various government agencies, non-profit organizations, and healthcare providers remains a significant challenge. Navigating the complex web of services can be daunting for individuals experiencing homelessness, and a lack of seamless integration can lead to inefficiencies and gaps in care. Furthermore, the stigma associated with homelessness often creates barriers to public support for solutions and can hinder the reintegration of formerly homeless individuals into the community. The sheer scale of the crisis in many major cities often overwhelms existing resources, making it difficult to provide timely and adequate assistance to everyone in need. As the homeless population continues to grow, the capacity of current systems is stretched to its breaking point. Finally, addressing the root causes of homelessness, such as poverty, lack of access to healthcare, and economic inequality, requires systemic changes that go beyond the immediate provision of aid and housing, demanding a more comprehensive and coordinated national strategy. Tackling homelessness in America's major cities isn't just about helping people on the ground. It also takes thoughtful policies and long-term commitment from every level of government. At the national level, decisions around housing support, healthcare access, and public assistance programs directly influence how communities manage housing insecurity. Many advocacy groups across the country are working to increase funding for affordable housing tools, like housing choice vouchers, and to strengthen protections that help prevent sudden displacement. They're also calling for better access to community-based wellness services, particularly for those navigating emotional or behavioral health challenges. Local and state governments are also shaping how we respond. Some areas are adopting creative solutions, such as requiring affordable housing in new developments or dedicating more resources to outreach and support services. Still, progress often depends on political will. and conversations around rent policies, zoning rules, and funding priorities can be difficult and divisive. That's why the work of community organizations, non-profits, and people who have experienced homelessness firsthand is so essential. Through storytelling, education, and advocacy, they're helping shift the conversation from short-term fixes to long-term evidence-based solutions. Ultimately, real change comes from working together, combining smart policies with compassion and persistence to ensure every person has a fair shot at safe and stable housing. The growth of homelessness in America's greatest cities has far-reaching consequences that extend beyond the individuals directly affected. The visible presence of homelessness can impact the perception and livability of urban environments, potentially affecting tourism and local businesses in certain areas. The strain on public services, such as emergency rooms, law enforcement, and sanitation departments, increases as these systems become de facto responders to the needs of the unhoused population. This diverts resources that could be allocated to other community needs. Furthermore, homelessness raises significant public health concerns. The lack of sanitation and hygiene among the unsheltered can contribute to the spread of infectious diseases, posing risks to the broader community. The mental health crisis within the homeless population also has implications for public safety and the demand for crisis intervention services. Addressing homelessness effectively is not only a matter of compassion and human dignity, but also a crucial step in fostering healthier, safer, and more vibrant urban communities for all residents. Investing in solutions that provide stable housing and support services can ultimately lead to cost savings in other areas, such as reduced emergency room visits and decreased involvement with the criminal justice system. The evidence is clear. Communities across America are facing an urgent housing emergency. Behind every data point are real people, impacted by rising living costs, fragile safety nets, and personal challenges that often go unseen. Addressing this crisis requires more than empathy. It calls for action. Whether that means supporting local organizations, learning more about the issues, or speaking up for policies that expand access to housing and essential care, every step matters. If this video helped you see this crisis in a new light, please like, share, and subscribe to Discovery Globe for more thoughtful stories on social and human topics. Together, we can stay informed and perhaps even inspired to make a difference. Disclaimer: this video is meant to inform and spark awareness. It is based on publicly available data and reports and is not intended as legal, medical, or financial advice. Please consult professionals for guidance related to your personal circumstances.